Now, welcome to another Visions Volume 2 review. This time it's The Pit.
This one comes from Studio Dart and Lucasfilm, so Japan and the US.
Oh,
Yes,
a tag team.
tag team, and I guess I'll just right off the bat say I'm disappointed that Lucasfilm made this.
That's a cruel opener.
Isn't one of my favorite ones.
Okay.
The animation style was just kind of plain. I don't know.
It was a little plain, but some of the others have been kind of plain too.
But the
But
ones
they
that
could
I
still
thought
deliver.
looked more plain had a really artistic flair. Like the Spy Dancer used, basic 2D animation, but there's such a grace in the movements that they put in there, and the way they used color was phenomenal. Screecher's Reach had a really, really compelling story and did this beautiful watercolor thing, and there was a lot of interpretation and of it's children stuff. So the drawings were almost done like they were children. It was really interesting the way they decided to use 2D animation. This just kind of felt
kind of basic.
Yeah, well, they didn't do any crazy movements. There wasn't any crazy action sequences or anything in this one.
No, there really wasn't, was there? There was
Right.
no action in this at all.
This was really weird in that sense. I mean, putting it into canon, yep, Empire, Dark Times, they're bad.
Yes.
It's a great example of the Empire sucking.
A really good example of the Empire sucking.
Yeah, that they're obviously horrible people. They stuck with this group into the pit and said, "Mine for Kyber," and then they used the Kyber to power or pay for the city. I'm not exactly sure what the correlation between the city and the Kyber was. I understood that the city seemed to finance it.
I guess, but I mean, would they really be selling? Because we know that the Empire's mining Kyber for the Death Star, not selling it, unless this was some kind of offshoot that wasn't doing that and just kind of trying to profit, that the commander was doing his own thing and building a city.
I mean, I thought their time-lapse animation was really cool, though.
That was probably the best part, visually.
Watch the city being built while the pit grew and got deeper.
Yeah.
Nobody thought at any time that we should try and keep a staircase built.
Well, I don't think they cared.
Well, the Empire didn't care, but the people building it...
Well, what's kind of strange in a way is the people of the city had to know about the pit and what was going on.
Somehow they didn't, even though there was in the time lapse, there was a clear, steady traffic in between the pit and the city.
Yeah.
But they just didn't, maybe they just assumed that there were droids digging it or something. They didn't know the schematics.
You don't think they ever heard that there were, slaves in the pit?
Maybe they didn't care.
Maybe they didn't care, but don't you...
Maybe they assumed that after they're, done digging over there
that they took them out of the pit?
Yeah. They didn't assume that the Empire would just leave them there.
I guess.
They might have just assumed they were criminals, which was the first impression I thought was when we saw the group let out there, all in the matching jumpsuits. I'm like, oh, it's like an Andor situation. These are indentured servants, or they're slaves, or they're criminals. I was like, okay, criminals. They're probably criminals, right? Because the Empire's got them in shackle. No, there's no way they were criminals because there were children down in the pit.
I think the children were born in the pit.
I don't know.
I don't know how long that took.
Well, I'm trying to base it on the old man. He survived the entire time. We saw him at the beginning. He was in the second wave, brought down there. So was Croc.
That was a pretty deep pit to dig with picks, right?
Yeah. Why did they use picks?
I don't know. Why?
There's so many questions.
You pointed out the droids earlier. You'd think you might have gotten droids. I don't know.
That's why there were so many questions and why I couldn't truly put this one higher up in my I loved it category type thing.
Because you're going to spend a lot of money keeping the slaves fed and watered, as cruel as that sounds.
Yeah.
That costs a lot of money.
Plus they gave them tents and
yeah, I mean, they're going to get basic supplies, right, just to survive. I mean, no more, but they're still going to get basic supplies. That's going to cost a lot of money over years when you could probably just get some droids. I don't know.
Yeah, that's why I thought they were criminals, but then I was like, there's no way they're criminals.
No, I didn't get the impression they were criminals. I just thought they were captured and brought here for no apparent reason.
Based on the age of the old man and the age of I know I said his name wrong because I can't remember exactly. It was Croc. But based on their ages at the beginning and then when we saw them at the end of the episode, I'm like, they didn't age at all, which means that this happened fast. I mean, yeah, you can build a city fast when you have a futuristic technology. I don't know how you build the pit that fast.
I guess one of my points is you're building the city probably with droids and technology, yet you're digging the pit with people. And we're probably looking too far into it. I think it's supposed to be a more simplistic message than that.
Probably.
About, exploiting the people and then discarding them, essentially.
Right, definitely.
We're not supposed to be looking at the finer details of the episode, essentially. But
And then I was curious, where does this follow the light, follow their light, is the first way it was explained. Where does this mantra come from? He tells her, everything will be okay as long as those people, as long as they follow their light. And he is referring to an inner light, the right and wrong, following good, following your moral compass. Where did they, is this something that they developed as like a folk inside the pit? We developed this follow the light thing? Is this from wherever they came from?
I don't know.
I had so many questions coming out of this one. And then he manages to make it into the city eventually. He climbs up the little armadillo gopher, helps make handholds for him.
Why not? Yeah.
He gets to the city, but nobody will listen to him, nobody at all, which I find strange.
I don't know. If you were walking down the streets in New York, for example, big city, and you just kept going up to people like, you need to listen to me, you're acting kind of crazy and dressed strangely, I think a lot of people are going to ignore you.
But there are people who will listen.
Certainly.
In this case, nobody listened until he stood on something and was like, I need to talk to you. And I was like, that's the same thing he's just saying, but nobody listened.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, this was a social commentary type thing. I did like how the people inside the pit, the little girl for one, always had optimism. These people are going to find us. We're going to be saved. They had this strong belief in the good inside of people, which paid off for them in the end.
It did.
Mm-hmm. But then when we saw the Empire throw that poor kid down to his death, I was like, dang.
Yeah, this was actually the harshest of the episodes. Just kind of, not really like a kid's type thing here. We saw some pretty effed up cruelty in this. Kind of leaving the people behind to die of starvation or thirst in the pit. Mm-hmm. Probably thirst before starvation, depending on their water situation.
For all we know, that they could eventually drown down there if the rain would have kept up.
Yeah, that's what I thought when it started to rain. When you got to
bottom, and I'm like, they hit something solid that. Yeah, I'm like, are they gonna drown down here in the rain?
That's kind of what I thought, because you got to the city and it started to rain, and I'm like, my God, are they gonna drown? Like, how harsh is this thing gonna go?
Right.
And then we see the kid just chucked down and splatting on the hard ground below. So it was very cruel. It was very harsh, very kind of visceral.
And then they did their chant, calling to the people of the city. But I believe the people of the city were just coming out to look because they were following the boy, not their light initially, because there's no way they heard them.
I don't think so.
Yes, they're in a pit, and this could resonate sound to make it a bit louder, but there was also a storm going on.
Yeah, if they would have heard them singing, they would have heard the pickaxes for the last few years, or however long, too.
Did you not notice the pickaxes?
Yeah,
The constant droning tick, 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 tick all day long, every day. You never noticed that?
Yeah, I think this one was just focused more on kind of symbolism and trying to say a message rather than tell a story exactly, which is, it is what it is.
I was almost disappointed, though, the Empire didn't mow anybody down.
Yeah, you almost think they would. They were cruel enough to leave people in the pit.
Yeah. I thought for sure they'd at least start shooting, and then the people would take them down.
I think that would have been better in a way.
I almost thought it would have been just, perhaps, if they would have saved the people and then left the Empire down there. I don't know. I like a good revenge story. Look, you're safe. Empire, have fun in the pit.
Down in the pit? Yeah, well, it's not like they didn't deserve it.
Right. I was waiting for some revenge. But
all right.
But these are optimistic, good people that were thrown into the pit. I also wish they didn't do that post-credit scene. It was the only one with one, and I think people missed it.
Well,
because it was the only one that was like skip
the credits instead of go to the next episode.
For some reason you back out and then you're like, oh, hit back, go to the next episode. You might not have caught it at all. But, it was just the mural.
Yeah, well, I'm that guy who's like, where did he get the paint?
He had the paint. He had the paint the whole time.
Yeah, but how?
The Empire gave it to him. Because he was marking rocks with an X earlier in the episode.
Oh, God, you're right.
Yeah, early in the episodes, there were some rocks that had X's on them, and that was his job.
All right.
He marked them, and then he used his leftover paint to make a really nice
Did he
mural.
have that many different colors of paint, though?
When you have enough primary colors, you really
all you need is the 3. You're right. Okay, hey.
I'm not gonna... Hey, somehow they had food and fresh water down there after the Empire left them.
Right. I don't know why that was my sticking point. There were other things I could have...
I also wish they wouldn't have given the girl force powers at the end.
She just cleansed the kyber crystal.
Or something.
Or not cleansed it,
or it attuned to her. Or
did to her will and it turned blue. Kind of a Jedi nod.
I just think that was unnecessary.
I do too. I didn't really...
I liked almost that it didn't use the Force, that this was one that was just going to show the power of human perseverance. And they're like, oh, wait, she's a Jedi.
Like, it was kind of not needed.
Not needed. It was unnecessary.
It didn't, like, hurt it. It just didn't really... I didn't think it added anything. No, this wasn't my favorite. Again, I think my problem is it really wasn't a story as much as it was a kind of a message. Which it wasn't... I'm not saying I disagree with the message of... that it was
the
trying to
message
convey.
were good, but...
Sure, but I kind of just, I want
You wanted to see more of a, here's my
I
Star
just want
Wars
a Star
story
Wars
interpretation.
story. Yeah, exactly. I don't think they got the assignment in a way, which is odd.
Because it came from Lucasfilm as well?
Yeah, it was like the tag team, and that was the one that was the least Star Wars. Lucasfilm...
Maybe that's because Lucasfilm was involved and they don't know Star Wars anymore. The other countries are like, yo, you said we're going to do Star Wars? Yeah, leave us alone. We're fine. We got this. And then Lucasfilm's like, hey,
we don't know
Studio
Star Wars.
Dart,
You got
we want to do a Star Wars story with you. And they're like, okay. And then they're like, let's not make it about Star Wars, though. I'm like, what? What?
Yeah. I don't know. It was odd. Not bad odd, but not a good story.
Right.
Which is probably going to end it up towards the bottom of my list when all is said and done. All right, well, that is going to be all we got for you this time. So now it's your turn to take to the comments below and tell us what you thought of The Pit. And let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, thanks for watching.